Welcome, class, to lesson 4-4. Strong mathematicians can use multiplication and division equations to solve comparison problems. So get your notebook out right now, get your pencil, write down today's date, the lesson number, and let's get to work. Box 1, our vocabulary right now. We've got some terms that we're going to use and some examples that are going to help us out. So we're going to talk about compare. When it says compare, we've heard this before in language arts, of compare and contrast. We're going to describe quantities as greater than, less than, or equal to each other. So if we look at these right now, we have Sarah and Ryan made soup. Sarah made 2 quarts and Ryan 6. So let R equal the number of quarts Ryan made, and let S equal the number of quarts Sarah made. So if we take the lower of the two numbers, right, we start with 2. This would be 2 quarts that Sarah made. So then Ryan would have 2, 2, and 2 to make the 6 quarts. So if you look at this, Ryan made 3 times as many quarts as Sarah. So there are some different ways that we could write this. We write it as a multiplication equation. Ryan's on one side, Sarah's on the other, and it would take Sarah times 3 to equal how many quarts of soup that Ryan made. We could also write it this way. Ryan's on one side, Sarah on the other, and 3 and S together. We know with a number and a variable together, that means we should multiply those as well. Or we could write it as a division problem. Notice we're comparing things. Sarah's on one side, Ryan's on the other. And if we want to make sense, Sarah has the lower total, we need to divide the bigger total to bring that number down. So you're going to pause this video right now and write down these examples to help you out with your work today. So let's look at some problems that involve kind of using comparisons of multiplication and division. So Natasha made 12 quarts of soup. Manuel made 3 quarts. I use spell check right there. It's not spelled correctly. We'll fix that later. Said, let the amount of soup Natasha made be N and the amount of soup Manuel made be M. So we look at our two numbers. We have Manuel made 3 quarts and Natasha made 12 quarts. So if we look back at our one before, we know here's M for Manuel, and he made 3 quarts. So now the question is, how much did Natasha make? Well, she made 12 quarts total, and we know that 12 can be divided by 3. So we're going to go like this. We're going to put 3, and then another 3, and then another 3, and then another 3 to equal 12 quarts. So now our thing is we want to write a multiplication equation that compares the amounts. So we're doing this. We're going to put a multiplication, so we need to use multiplication. And so we'll have Manuel on one side, and then Natasha on the other side. And now the question is we need to multiply. So which number would we need to multiply to equal each other out? Well, if Natasha has 12 right now, and Manuel has 3 right now, we know 3 does not equal 12. But if I take 3 and I times it by something, since it's a multiplication equation, I can make 3 equal 12. If you look at my drawing, notice I had a 1, 2, 3, 4 times as many, so it would be 3 times 4. That would now equal 12. So our equation that compares these two amounts is right here of M times 4 equals N. So you can pause that down and write that part down right now. And then we're going to switch gears. We're going to switch over to division. So now we need a division problem. We know when we divide, numbers get smaller. So the same thing when we compare the amounts. We're going to put M on one side for Emmanuel and N for Natasha on the other side and our equal sign. And now we have to divide. So the same thing, look right what we did last time is what numbers do we know? Well, Manuel made 3. Natasha made 12. So I'm going to use dividing. Well, I usually want to divide numbers to make them smaller. 12 is my bigger number, so I put my division sign on this side. And just like we did before, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of these. We're going to divide this by 4. And then if we divide 12 by 4, it equals 3. So our division equation right there would then be M equals N divided by 4. So you can pause the video, write that part down to help us out with what a multiplication equation helps comparison and a division equation comparison of amounts. Here's another problem for us. It's a word problem. Fred has 72 football cards and Scott has 6 football cards. The number of football cards Fred has is how many times the number Scott has? So our Fred has 72 cards. Our Scott has 6 cards. So the question is how many times? So the number of cards Fred has is how many times the number Scott has. So the kind of the big part right here that sticks out is how many times. So we know if Scott's on one side. Whoops. Let's draw that, make that an S. If Scott's on one side and Fred's on the other side right now, we know we got 6 and we have 72. So if we want to figure out how to make these equal, well, we have to multiply the 6 by something to equal how many times Fred has more than Scott. So to figure that out, we have to go 6 divided by 72. 1 goes in there, subtract. Said 1's less than 6, bring down the 2. 6 can go in that, 12. So it would be 6 times 12 would help us out. So the question is, how many times as many Scott has? Would be 12 times as many. So you can pause that right now, write down this example to help you out. And on to our next problem. It says there are 245 bottles of sand in Josie's sand collection, and that is 5 times as many as the number of seashells in her seashell collection. How many seashells does Josie have? So let's figure this out. There are 255 bottles of sand in Josie's sand collection. So right now I know I have 245 bottles of sand. Said, and that is 5 times as many as the number of seashells in her collection. So she has seashells, but we don't know. And we got 5 times as many. So we got bottles of sand and we have seashells. So the question is, how many seashells does Josie have? Well, so if we'll put B for bottles of sand on this side, which is 245. And we have 5 times as many, and on the other side we have S for seashells. So the question is, does she have more seashells or less seashells than sand? It says, so that is 5 times as many as the number of seashells. So it sounds like her seashells, she has more sand than seashells. So therefore, I'm going to take my number, my bottles of sand, and I'm going to divide it by 5 to figure out how much sand do I have. So 5 divided by 245. This was in there 4. That would be it. 4 times 5 is 20. 24 minus 20 is 4. Bring down the 5. 5 can go 45 9 times. 45. And no remainder. So how many seashells does Josie have? Josie would have 49 seashells. So you can pause this one right now, write down this information to help you. Yeah, these said this is a little tricky in the wording. We really got to get comfortable finding how many times as many to really help us out as we continue to move through these problems. And now it's your turn to do some of these skills that we worked on in today's lesson. So I want you to draw a line on your paper right now. Write box 3, now your turn. Have it nice and labeled so we can easily see your work. Billy made 18 dozen cookies. Jimmy made 6 dozen. Let the amount of cookies Billy made be B, and the amount of cookies Jimmy made be J. What I'd like you to do then is write a multiplication equation that compares the amounts. And I would also like you to write a division equation that compares the amounts. So you can please do that now. And a word problem for you to solve. Susie has 48 Barbie dolls and Missy has 8 Barbie dolls. The number of Barbie dolls Susie has is how many times the number Missy has? And last but not least, Tessa has 4,524 centimeters of fabric, and that is 6 times as much fabric as she needs to make some pillows. How many centimeters of fabric does Tessa need to make the pillow? So you can pause the video right now and see if you can solve that one as well. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to write them down or share them out. Also, if you have any strategies that you use to help you, make sure you share those as well to help others who might still be struggling. And once again, thank you for a good lesson.